This episode of Destructoid is brought to you by GameFly. Coming up on Destructoid, there's Bruno Mars in my Fantasia Music Evolved. Somebody put a bunch of ghosts in Murdered, Sole Suspect, and there's a bunch of farting in South Park, Stick of Truth. All that and more right now on Destructoid.
Welcome to Destructoid. I'm Tara Long.
And I'm Max Scoville.
It says not Max Scoville because we didn't change the script after Anthony was here.
I wasn't here last episode.
How was your vacation?
I had a lovely time in Los Angeles, which I mistakenly went to the week before E3. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea,
that was a poor choice.
Yeah. Anyway, it's good to be back.
Yes, it is good to be back. We have a lot of news today to cover, actually. Probably the biggest announcement was that of Fantasia Music Evolved, which is a brand new IP from our old friends at Harmonix. A lot of people are angry about this, and I feel like a lot of that anger is because it's just not really the kind of game that you can convey in an announcement trailer.
I would say their announcement trailer was especially douchey, too.
Yeah, it's not quite that motionful.
It looks like a gum commercial.
It does. It really does. You and I were actually able to go hands-on with the game last week, or hands outspread, I guess. Before we knew anything about it, we didn't even know what we were seeing. And I have to say, once you sort of get over the fact that it actually has very little to do with the movie Fantasia, it is a surprisingly fun game. And it's also a very strange game. There's a pretty loose storyline here which casts you as the next sorcerer's apprentice, second in line after Mickey, and part of your apprenticeship involves being sent to these musical realms and restoring them back to life with your own unique musical creations. Obviously, none of that is really in the trailer. It's just, hand movements. There are a lot of things that you can't really glean from that trailer. There are some exploratory elements there. There are a couple small puzzle-like parts. But for the most part, it is an interactive music game, and you will be using your hands to control it, which, God, I love doing this. So all of your motions are shown with little ticks that look like hands on a watch, sort of, and you basically move your hands in the direction of the ticks. It's pretty intuitive. The interesting thing about it, which seems to be the main source of complaints here, is the fact that it uses contemporary songs rather than classical music, which I can understand the complaints about that. I mean, Fantasia is one of my all-time favorite Disney movies, and like everybody else, I don't want to see it destroyed by something. But given the nature of this game, I don't think that, remixing classical music with your hands would really be all that fun. And of course, there is some room for personal experimentation. Every song has parts where you'll have to remix them by adding either a classical, a rock, or a jazz percussion overlay. There's also this thing called the sound sketcher, which lets you sort of freestyle for a bit with your hands, and then whatever music or melody you create with that will get incorporated into the song. It's a really fun game, honestly, and it doesn't involve dancing, so I am instantly on board. If you guys want to read more about Fantasia Music Evolved, Abel Germain has a really good preview up right now on Destructoid.com, as well as a list of the 5 songs that have already been confirmed for the game. There's apparently 25 plus total. So yeah, check those out and let us know what you guys think.
People are being really negative about this game, and I think it made a bad impression with this trailer, but what we saw looked much different from that. And I think
it's really the kind of thing that you've got to play to understand.
Hold on to your reservations a little bit longer. It's kind of cool. If you want a video game that's a little bit less family friendly, then you'll be happy to hear that we've got some new details on South Park, The Stick of Truth. The game's kind of been in limbo since its former publisher THQ went out of business, and then the project was subsequently picked up by Ubisoft, but it sounds like things are coming together nicely. Destructoid's Hamza Aziz got a chance to check the game out, and if for whatever reason anybody was expecting that Trey Parker and Matt Stone were going to be pulling any punches with their jokes for the sake of it being a video game, it certainly doesn't seem like that's the case. The game unabashedly takes kind of a turn for the fantastic. It's definitely not ashamed of the fact that it is a role-playing game, and the people in South Park are divided in a civil war over a mystical item called the Stick of Truth, as the title would suggest. In the game, players take on the role of the new kid, who is completely customizable in terms of gender, appearance, skills, abilities, weapons, and so forth. What makes this new kid special, though, is his or her special abilities, which range from, shrinking down to fit in small spaces to, having an alien probe emerge from your butt and then allowing you to teleport in South Park style. The big special ability, however, seems to be centered around farts. Yeah. In addition to farting into your hands and then throwing fart balls, players can also unleash a blast of farts known as the Dragon Shout. Dragon Shout. It's also worth mentioning that the player character will be addressed by other characters as Dragonborn, so
I can't believe they can get away with that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're really skimping on the kind of South Parkian ballsy use of licensed terms, and it doesn't stop with Skyrim references either. Later in the game, Hamza came across a girl who was being attacked, and after rescuing her, she later added him on Facebook. This is like in-game Facebook, not some kind of dumb social media integration, as far as I can tell, at least. Apparently, making Facebook friends in the game with NPCs is key to getting new abilities, as well as that's how you add new party members to your party. South Park. The game's combat is turn-based, and Hamza compared it to Super Mario RPG, which is by no means a bad thing. And aside from the cutesy South Park aesthetic, the game's attacks are absurdly violent, with children getting hit in the face with hammers and electrocuted with car batteries. And oh yeah, here's the best one. Players can summon Mr. Slave, who will then proceed to stuff enemies up his own ass. Yeah. So on that note, I'm sold. I don't know about you guys. If you want some more info on South Park: The Stick of Truth, Hamza's got his whole write-up over on Destructoid.com, and that is slated for a PC, PS3, and 360 release sometime later this year. And it sounds. Well, you can do the in the farts, so I don't know. I'll buy the game.
Yeah, farts. What more do you need to know, guys?
God, I love this job sometimes.
On to a game that is decidedly less fun with that. Last week, I spent the better part playing Remember Me, which is the cyberpunk action-adventure game from Capcom that I have spent so many months coveting, which unfortunately seems to have fallen a bit short of my expectations. We talked about this game a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that you guys are already familiar with the premise. Girl wakes up out of nowhere with her memory wiped, then spends the rest of the time trying to find out who did it, and also take down this multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's a classic tale, As interesting as a premise as that sounds, though, the story didn't really keep my attention at all, and there's two main reasons for that. One, the dialogue is ultra cheesy. Not all the time, but a good majority of it. Some of the sound-ups that I put in my review are absolutely god-awful. And two, the game is not immersive at all, which, I mean, for a game that's this story-rich, it kind of should be. The controls are terrible. The platforming is extremely linear and, again, very difficult because of the poor controls. And the combat is presented in such an overly complex manner that you fail to realize how mind-numbingly simple it actually is. Likewise, the memory remixing, which was supposed to be the most distinguishing factor of this game and what I was really excited for, is not actually a huge part of it at all, and in fact seems to be more about trial and error than actual puzzle solving. So, yeah. Despite all those negatives, there are certain good things about the game. The world itself is extravagantly detailed and very interesting to look at. Certain platforming sections do have some really interesting and challenging puzzles incorporated into them. And the combat, despite its convolutedness, can impart feelings of accomplishment when you finally do nail that 7-move combo. It's just, it hardly ever happens. Yeah, those positives just weren't enough to alleviate my frustrations. I gave the game a 3 out of 5, which is pretty generous, I think. My full review can be found over on youtube.com/Rev3Games, and Jim Sterling also reviewed it for Destructoid.com. He gave it a 6 out of 10, which is the same score as mine because math, although his complaints were more about the story than anything else. So, yeah, it seems like kind of a mixed bag here. What do you guys think about this? Have you played it yet? It's out today, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
I think it's cool that it tried to do something new, and it's good to see like a new IP. It's unfortunate that it kind of bit off more than it could chew.
I know.
Speaking of new IPs, since we usually have no idea what to expect of them, it's always nice when we finally have a trailer and some details about one. For instance, Square-Enix's upcoming Murdered Sole Suspect, which is a really terrible name for a game. They've kind of been half-assedly teasing this game for some time now, trickling out tidbits of reveal stuff without actually showing off that much. But a press release got sent out today, and the game apparently follows Ronan O'Connor, a recently deceased detective who is stuck in limbo and must find ways to track down clues and then influence the living in order to solve the mystery of his own murder. So,
okay.
kind of sounds familiar. Sounds like a cool ghost story. Anyway, Ronan's free to explore Salem, Massachusetts, which, given its kind of occult history, has no shortage of other ghosts and demons for Ronan to deal with. And in addition to interrogating other kind of good spirits like himself, he'll also have to interrogate. He takes control of the living. I think he goes into their brains. It actually sounds kind of like a supernatural Remember Me.
Yeah.
Am I totally crazy here?
No.
But yeah, it's still unclear whether the game will be focused more on puzzles and exploration, or if it's going to have kind of a more straightforward supernatural action bent to it. But it sounds like it could yield some admittedly kind of interesting results. Though the premise does sound a lot like Capcom's very popular Nintendo DS game Ghost Trick, and I can also see some comparisons being drawn to Quantic Dream's upcoming Beyond Two Souls. I mean, even the title is kind of similar. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious about this. I'll give it a shot. Murdered Soul Suspect is slated for release on PC and current gen systems sometimes early next year, and I think it's safe to assume we're probably going to hear more about it at E3 next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Games like Remember Me make me so wary when there's just like, here are all the things you can do in this game. It's got a great story. You can hack into people's brains and do all these puzzles, and it also has you fighting things and all this, and it's like
sometimes simpler is better. Yeah. Well, speaking of video games, wouldn't it be awesome if you could play them without having to actually buy them? Yes, it would. And guess what? You're in luck, because that's precisely what GameFly does. GameFly is the world's largest online video game rental service, offering you a choice from over 8,000 games for whatever console or handheld you own. GameFly's plans start at just $15.95 a month. Members can rent 1 to 4 games at a time and keep them for as long as they like. There are no late fees, no due dates, and shipping is always free. Once you're done playing a game, just send it back and GameFly will send you the next available game on your list. Or if you really like the game you're playing and you want to keep it, you can do that. Just go to the GameFly website and click Keep It, and the game is yours at a discounted price. They will even mail you the case and manuals free of charge. Members can also play hundreds of PC games for free with their unlimited PC Play plan. For a limited time, just visit gamefly.com/Destructoid and we will hook you up with a 15-day free trial so you can test it out for yourself. Again, that is gamefly.com/Destructoid. Supports the show and it gets video games in your pocket, which is always a good thing.
What's wrong with that?
Yep. All right, back to the show. So E3 is next week, which means that they have already started gussing up the convention center with oversized banners of dudes holding weapons and looking generally sultry, which is pretty hot. Turns out there's already one up for Dark Souls 2, and not only that, there is a release date for it, of March 2014. Yeah, that's a far way off. NeoGAF user Gribix posted this image showing the release date, or I guess release window, and in the bottom right corner, which you probably can't see, there are 2 logos, one for Xbox 360 and one for PS3, which is curious considering the game launches several months after the Xbox One and the PS4 launch. Does this mean Dark Souls 2 will be one of the last games made for this generation of consoles? It's too soon to tell, but signs are pointing to yes.
I don't know. I mean, they still.
That was a pun. You didn't recognize it, so I just want to make sure that you saw it.
You should work on the puns.
Okay.
Sarah. I don't know. I think it's worth noting that sometimes they do use those logos as placeholders before we had the official PS4 or Xbox. I mean, we had the Xbox One logo like last week, you know.
You'd think that they would know that the consoles would have been announced by E3 though, and they could have prepared that in the banner.
Did you see the size of that banner? Probably
That's
took
a pretty
while to
huge
print.
banner. Yeah, it probably took like 8 years.
Yeah, they've been weaving it. It's a big tapestry. Anyway, on that note, it is time for the show to end. We're going to be back here on Friday with another one of our lovely, fun live shows. I'll actually be here this time. I won't be in LA, not until next week. Anyway, that's happening 3:30 p.m. Pacific time right here on youtube.com/Dtoid. You guys have a great week. Get lots of rest and try not to get bit by any animals before Friday.